Hi, welcome to Voices. I am your host, Keith Major. Today again we are discussing issues and matters pertinent to the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the territory that includes Turks and Caicos Islands, the Cayman Islands, the North Bahamas, and the rest of the Bahamas. And of course the union leadership is represented here by the person of Dr. Leonard Johnson, who is the newly elected president of the Atlantic Caribbean Union Mission. Dr. Johnson, welcome again.
Certainly, it's a pleasure always, as I say, Brother Keith, because this gives me a forum, an opportunity to share with our people what God is doing through His union.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson, we want to get right into this right away. And the previous time we were speaking, we were talking a lot about the union and its activities, and we'll do some more of that. But right now, there's an international thing going on that Adventists are wondering about, and that is Dr. Ben Carson,
Yes.
a prominent Seventh-day Adventist who is running in the elections and is actually leading the Republican Party, which is causing more focus on him. And of course, there are those of us who wonder whether that is right, whether that is good, and should we do the same in our upcoming elections. Dr. Johnson, tell us a little bit about the Ben Carson effect from your eyes.
Well, there are many things I can say, having met Ben Carson myself on several occasions. But one good thing I see coming out of this, who are Seventh-day Adventists? And that, to me, represents a golden opportunity to say who we are, and more so, whose we are, to focus on our God. Donald Trump may not know Ben's church and who Seventh-day Adventists are, but at the end of this process, hopefully, he will know about Seventh-day Adventists, the work that we're doing, what we stand for, and the tremendous contribution this church has made. But above all, we want people to know about our God. I can remember some years ago when who we refer to as the father of the nation, Sir Lyndon, passed. Sir Lyndon became a member of the church again, meaning that he was a member some years ago. A lot of people didn't know that. They only knew about this politician, outstanding prime minister, outstanding Bahamian leader who's been in power, 25 years,
Right.
all right? But by becoming a member again of the church, that raised the eyebrows of a number of persons. I was the communications director at the time when Pastor Roach rebaptized Sir Lyndon, and that was a moving experience for us. He became an active member of the Sabbath School at Hillview and was even teaching. And so at his funeral, with the world watching, Pastor Keith Albury, who passed, our former conference president, he presented a powerful message for the memorial, and then Pastor Roach presented the message at the actual service, attended by dignitaries from all over the world. So that gave us an opportunity to be understood, to be scrutinized, to be known even better in the Bahamas and elsewhere. So I see a similar thing happening, and I say, bring it on.
Yes. In fact, the polls are, when people ask why are people following him, and people are following him is because of the so-called truth. They believe in him. One thing I'd like to commend the church on too.
Okay.
Initially, when they followed Dr. Carson, seemingly it was very difficult to find out who Seventh-day Adventists were.
Yes.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church responded very quickly by
web-
creating a video called "Who Are the Adventists?"
A website and
Yes.
what have you that details our message, what we believe, our practices, and so on. And it tells us that we have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
More people should really know who we are.
Yes.
And so when I was given the opportunity some years ago to serve on one of the boards, the Airport Authority Board, I was reluctant because, you know, we live in a very polarized society.
right.
If I'm seen identifying with this prime minister, then I am colored a certain way. But as a church, we do not subscribe to one over the other. We support who's the government of the day. But when I was asked to serve on this board, and thinking about it, seeking counsel and praying about it, I agreed to do it. And that gave me an opportunity to represent my church at that board level And you know, the chairman would always ask me to pray at the beginning of the meetings. And when there was this talk about the possibility of putting some slots machine at the airport, there was always the presence of Pastor Johnson, Pastor Johnson. So there was some influence. And I thank God for that. And that's what I'm saying, total member involvement. You're going to hear me saying that a lot, Keith, so don't get tired of me saying that.
All right, sir.
We want to use our influence, whatever God has given us, for Christ. You know a lot of people, man. People view this program.
You know, I was in a discussion, albeit an argument with someone dear to me about Ben Carson, and their reaction was, I want him to lose. He shouldn't be running. He is he's Seventh-day Adventist. So I said, well, you know, Daniel served through three governments. Joseph was the number 2 man in Egypt. Moses was in line to be the next Pharaoh. What are you saying?
It's not to say that members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church cannot serve their country as political leaders. But you know, there are some challenges with that. And they have to make sure this is the direction God is leading them. And they have to be committed to God more than to a given party. In our small country nations, where we are so polarized, I really have some concerns at times. But who am I to judge? If one feels that God is leading him or her in this area, my admonition to you, be faithful to your God. Do not compromise your standards for any position or any gain. You be faithful to God like Daniel, because you made a vital point there, you know. Daniel served through 3 governments. And when I look at the last one he served in the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians, in Daniel chapter 6, it says, and you talk about my pastor side.
But that's what the people want to hear anyhow.
In Daniel chapter 6, when it says that Darius really looked for a person and he thought to make Daniel head of everybody. When Daniel ended up in the lion's den because the king was deceived, he spent the whole night trying to figure out how he could save Daniel.
Get him out,
Daniel meant so much to the king. And Daniel was very old at this time, you know, Keith. How is it that he meant so much to the king? The king could have found somebody else. Daniel's just one person. Yes, he was just one person. But the Bible says in the first part of chapter 6, he possessed an excellent spirit, and the king sought to experience no loss. That's powerful. That tells me something. So Daniel was called by God to this area, and he never compromised his position once.
And his jealous friends, because Daniel was put over the other permanent secretaries. He was the cabinet secretary. And they sought for something that they could turn against him. And the only thing they could find was he prayed too much.
Now that tells you something, right? A man in a secular environment, but he does not change his ways and his practices. Because even when he knew that the decree was signed, that if anyone should worship anyone other than the king for 30 days, going to end up in the den of lions, Daniel went to his house as it was his custom, and he opened his window and prayed 3 times a day. Daniel did not change his principles for any earthly party.
So Daniel might have been the one that started the push initiative, right? Pray until something happens.
Oh yes, and especially when you get the Daniel 9.
Well, let's get back our producers. My producers is having a heart attack now. You have awakened the theological juices in me, so we're not here for that reason only. But nevertheless, I'm going to ask you a question. They're signaling me for a break, but we'll ask this question and begin to answer it first. And that is this. Back in July, was it, or June, when we had the general conference session, the vote was defeated by a significant margin, that the divisions not be allowed to choose for themselves whether to ordain women. Now, subsequent to that, we have had 6 months has passed. What's going on with this? Elder Leho wrote a letter. Why the need for a letter? I've heard people admonishing them at the fall council, fall in line. What is happening? Why do we need to restate or why the letter?
You see, let me speak to our division. Some persons interpreted that vote that we should not have female elders anymore. We should not have them serving. We should not ordain them. We should not ordain female deaconesses. We should not have female pastors. So we have a female pastor, an active female pastor in the Turks and Caicos Islands mission. And so no doubt the question has arisen, does she still continue to serve? And that is why it was necessary for Elder Leto to write this letter. Prior to his letter, I had done something myself because I wanted people to understand what was meant by this vote. It did not mean that these persons should no longer serve. The vote simply meant that the divisions could not move ahead with ordaining female pastors. Unfortunately, in some divisions, they have now taken the position, well, I don't know if it's the division, within the division, but not the division itself. Some places or unions have taken the position that they will not ordain not only female pastors, but they will no longer ordain male pastors, all right? But for us, the letter of Elder Leto clearly states, the vote taken in San Antonio does not change the church's understanding of the role of women in the life, mission, and practice of the church as supported by the church manual and outlined in general conference and division working policies. Godly, spirit-filled women are powerfully witnessing for Christ and being used by the Holy Spirit to make major contributions for the advancement of his kingdom. All right?
Let's pause right there.
We continue.
Yeah, we pause right there. We'll take this back up as soon as we finish our break. We're going to take a break now. This is Voices. I'm your host, Keith Major. And of course, our guest is the president of the Atlantic Caribbean Union Mission, Dr. Leonard Johnson. See you in a short while.
In 1909, A.A. Carscallon reported his progress spreading the gospel in Kenya to Adventist Review readers. Writing of the considerable challenges he faced, in 7 words, he stated his reason for leaving America to pioneer the work in Kenya. The real need here is the gospel. Born in Ontario, Canada in 1879, Arthur Asa Carscallon was baptized into the Adventist Church at 20, and upon receiving ministerial training at Union and Newbold, accepted a call to start the work in Kenya. With his new bride, Helen Thompson, and a Malawian named Peter Nyambo, his classmate at Newbold, the 3 left for East Africa in late 1906. Carscallon was a superintendent of the British East Africa Mission for 13 years. During that time, he, Helen, and Nyambo were instrumental in establishing numerous mission stations, health clinics, schools, printing presses, and churches throughout the region. Impressively, Carscallon mastered the Luo language, becoming the first to write it. He published the only grammar textbook and dictionary in the Luo tongue at the time, and translated portions of the New Testament. One individual Carscallon won to Adventism was Onyango Obama from Kendu Bay on the shore of Lake Victoria. 9 years old at the time the Carscallons arrived, Onyango attended Adventist boarding school, and later much of his family followed his lead and became Seventh-day Adventist Christians. To this day, many of the Obama family members are Seventh-day Adventists. By the way, Onyango Obama was the grandfather of the 44th President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
Welcome back to Voices. My guest, Dr. Leonard A. Johnson, president of the Atlantic Caribbean Union Mission. I'm your host, Keith Major. When we broke a short while ago, we were concluding on the topic of women ordination. Is there a conclusionary statement you want to make, final statement you want to make on that, sir?
Essentially, Keith, what we're saying is that women can serve as pastors, they can serve as female elders, and also as deaconesses. And in the latter two, elders and deaconesses, they can be ordained. As it pertains to a woman serving as a pastor, there is not the provision in the church by that vote for any female pastor to be ordained. And as a union, we subscribe to the decision of the church in a general conference session. That's our position. And El Aledo simply sought to restate this position and to clarify. And he was in Cuba not too long ago, and it was gratifying to see him affirming our female pastors. In fact, one of the pastors is pastoring the largest church in Cuba, if I'm not mistaken. This female pastor doing a tremendous job, and we have them in different parts doing a tremendous job. God, as he has pointed out, has gifted all persons. Now, I know some persons don't like hearing this, but I can only tell you what it is.
And certainly, I'm sure you're pleased with the
Oh yes.
work that the women are doing.
Oh yes,
in your-
certainly.
in your
We
fields.
have Pastor Anastasia Ferguson Bansi, who hails from the Bahamas, and we have Pastor Daphne. And why am I not remembering Daphne's surname? She served as a pastor in the Turks and Caicos Islands mission, or church leader in the Turks and Caicos Islands mission. Went off to California and studied and just obtained her master's. I think in theology, but she has not been picked up as yet. So we affirm these two persons who have equipped themselves, and we support them.
Dr. Johnson, as we move into other happenings in your territories, when you spoke a while back about the uniqueness of your territories, it being a tourist destinations, offshore banking, it being a hurricane belt.
Yes.
In one of your territories, largely the South Bahamas Conference, your fields, in a sense, some of your fields were basically devastated. First of all, tell us a little bit about some of the devastation that you saw in these islands, and secondly, what is the church doing other than praying?
Yes, Keith, if that question didn't come from you, I would be surprised, talking about praying and what are you doing? The church must do more than pray. But before I get to the response of the church, the devastation seen in the southeastern section of the Bahamas has been widespread and very, very destructive. Long Island, for instance, in South Long Island, where we have the Stevens Church, that sustained major damage to its roof, and water's come on the inside, done some damage to some of the furniture. And in terms of the homes of members, a number of the members have been affected. But throughout that part of Long Island, it's amazing the amount of residents who have been affected. And then over in Cricket Island, in particular, we think about Landrill Point, where there's only one church, and that is the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The pictures that I've seen of that particular church sustained major, major damage. The pastor's residence, Pastor Barr, I mean, the roof's gone, the church roof is gone, the water came on the inside, damaged once again the furniture, major loss there in Cricket Island, Landrill Point. Some damage over in Acklands to the church, the Lovely Bay Church, but not as major as what was experienced in Cricket Island, all right? But members, likewise, have been greatly affected in Acklands. And then over in San Salvador, the church was not, did not sustain major damage in San Salvador, the Coburn Church. I think based on some information I got from Pastor Scavella, the building, if not Pastor Scavella, Pastor Green, the building is being rented by the government or been requested by the government to assist with classrooms for the local school there. Students can still continue with their learning and education. And so when I think about all that has happened, I'm telling you, Brother Keith, this was not an ordinary storm. This was something major that really affected listening to some of our people and what they experienced. They've been traumatized, they've been greatly affected, but I'm happy that they have come through this process. Now, what is the church doing? The church has sought to respond by providing water, providing canned goods, providing clothing, generators, and VBA from the South Bahamas Conference, Volunteer Bahamas Adventists, headed by Brother Winston Ash, is going into different parts of southern Bahamas, these areas that have been affected, and seeking to assist with the churches and members So I commend the South Bahamas and its effort to try to reach out. Separate and apart from that, the union working with the local field has been able to source funding from the Inter-American Division, because there's an arrangement when some damage or disaster would take place in a given union, that the other unions will weigh in and support. We've been helping other unions because of disasters in their areas for a number of years. Now we get to benefit. And so, yes, there's the response, but when you listen to persons, of course, persons feel that we can do much more, and that is the greatest room for improvement. The room for improvement, that's the greatest room that we talk about. So we commend the leadership of what has been done, and we pray that even more will continue to be done.
I've noticed in the congregations that the urgency, the sense of urgency about giving seems to have subsided. And I'm wondering if there's more the church can do to keep forefront to its members every week the constant and continuing need of these people. Not just the church doing, but you just said your thing that I'm going to hear a lot about, every member involved.
Yeah, every member involved.
And certainly this is an opportunity for that.
Yes.
Certainly this is an opportunity for that.
Because, you know, being in this hurricane belt area, the season has not ended, and we don't know what could happen. So we want to be in a position that we can help our people, can help persons who do not belong to the church, because we're not here just to help our members, but help people in general. And so certainly we want to encourage our people to give. I cannot say, maybe it might have been there where you were, that there has not been the appeal. I have not been around, and so I cannot speak directly to that. But certainly we want to encourage our brethren to do all you can to support the leadership in its drive to reach out to these members who have been greatly impacted by the recent hurricane.
Dr. Johnson, 2015 has been a somewhat, I would say, bizarre year. Had the hurricane. And the church, certainly in the South Bahamas, has had some prominent members. I call them saints. I don't know if it's good to do that, but
Paul refers to members as saints,
yes.
You know.
Nayoka Colley served the church well.
Yes.
Sister Rosita Miller, Orville Gibson, and very, very recently, Sister Mavis DeVoe.
Mary Brennan.
Sister Mary Brennan.
See, once we call names,
yes.
And the problem is, because you've overlooked many scores.
And all those who named we haven't called.
Yes.
But collectively, basically, speak to that for a minute. Reflect on their contribution to the church and the church's, I guess, condolence to all of that, you know.
You know, on behalf of the union, our family here at headquarters, we convey our condolences again to these families on the passing of such loved ones. It is not easy to experience the loss of a loved one, a father, a mother, a spouse, a grandmother, an aunt, an uncle. It does hurt, Brother Keith. And you think about the contributions these persons have made so that the church can be where it is today. In many ways, they have paved the path for those of us who are now the present members and present leaders. And we thank God for their involvement. We thank God for their sacrifice. We thank God for their contribution to the development of the work, not only in New Providence, but outside of New Providence. And we pray in the words of a song that Steve Green sings, may those who come behind us find us faithful. So I pray that those of us coming behind them would prove to be equally and even more faithful to the cause of God. And we only mentioned these ones here in New Providence, but can you think about, and say South Bahamas, but the North Bahamas Conference, the Turks and Caicos Islands Mission, the Cayman Islands Conference. We have lost a number of prominent persons.
Yes.
But everyone that we've lost, it brought some pain and grief to somebody.
Pastor Johnson, not only have we lost people to this life, but one of your great servants, Gehazi, Pastor Andrew Burrows.
Oh, Gehazi?
He's Gehazi. He's no, I can't call him Gehazi. Gehazi took the money. We'll call him Elisha. You'll call him Elisha.
You caught me there.
To your Elijah. Yeah, he's not a Gehazi. He doesn't take money for service. But he is my producer, has been my producer. I enjoyed working with him. We are losing him. He's going to be secretary to the North Bahamas Conference. But certainly you are losing a man who has taken 4 major portfolios: stewardship, communication, and a number of others. He's a huge loss to the union, hard worker.
Certainly.
But certainly the North will benefit. And we just like to pay tribute to him for his work and his service as he takes up office in January.
Yes.
Any comments on that?
Yes, certainly I want to join you in commending Pastor Andrew Burrows. I can recall when he was asked to come and serve here at the union, he accepted, took up the mantle, and I tell you, he took off running. Very committed, very hard-working individual, and he takes the work of the Lord seriously. Yes, we have given him a whole lot to do, but he took it on with the help of a number of persons, including Brother Garcia, John Garcia. They did a tremendous job. But I also want to say that in another setting, we will really show our appreciation to Pastor Burrows and his family for the contribution. And as he transitions to the North Bahamas Conference, we know that this disposition or this attitude will continue the same way that this, so we're happy for him. But I also want to use this opportunity to commend Pastor Errol Tinker, who will be retiring at the end of this year. Pastor Tinker has been serving for a number of years, and through him the Lord has accomplished a number of great things. This is not the place to deal with that, but I'm just mentioning it because of that. We have, through the executive committee of the North Bahamas Conference, and a nominating committee was appointed. A new leader in the person of Pastor Roger Munka has been elected, and he will assume office as of the 1st of January. Of course, Pastor Burrows is secretary on the 1st of January as well, and Sister Tonya Palmer will continue as the treasurer. So we want to pray for this young team, and we know by the grace of God, they will work together, and we're going to salute Pastor Tinker in a very definite way to express our appreciation. We want people to feel good about their church and about this organization.
Pastor Johnson, as we wind down our final few minutes, I just want to get back into that theological pastoring mode. But first of all, I want to commend you. You remind me of Barack Obama in this sense.
How's that so?
And that he came into the presidency with black hair.
Okay.
And it is pepper and gray, and I'm noticing the same thing about you. I was always told that gray hairs are a sign of wisdom.
Okay.
And so
I accept that one.
I want to commend you and for your leadership the last 5 years, and certainly best wishes, and really thanks to your family. Usually when you're a leader like this, you sacrifice, you give, your family has to give you to the people.
Certainly.
And we return you at the end of your life or something like that. And so I just want to commend you for that. And certainly I want to give you an opportunity to cite your family and the sacrifices they make.
I cannot say thanks enough to my family, in particular my dear wife Denise, who puts up with being absent from her husband. She gets to travel with me, but not as I would want. Of course, she works full-time at Bahamas Academy, and she takes her responsibility very seriously, Brother Keith. And so I am really grateful for the support I've received from her and from all of the workers and the members and the field leaders. We're grateful for this. And, Keith, there is one thing that I sought to inject here, and that is when I think about the level of crime throughout the region, the Cayman Islands, the Turks and Caicos, and more so in the Bahamas, it does give us concern. based on all evidence, the record for murders in 1 year, in a given year in the Bahamas, this year would have exceeded all previous years. And that is so unfortunate, because that represents those amount of persons who have died, who have been murdered, who have been snuffed out, who have been killed. And you're talking about someone's father, someone's husband, someone's friend, someone's son, someone's brother, someone's sister, you know, and you think about it, whether they were doing something wrong or not, it's still a loss. And the question comes to me as a pastor and as a leader, have I done enough? Have we done enough to have impacted one of those persons in a positive way? May God help us as I conclude with this whole matter of TMI, total member involvement. I need to be involved. I need to do my part. I need to cast a positive influence. I need to be about God's business on a daily basis.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Leonard A. Johnson, the man, the myth, the leader, the pastor, the family man. Dr. Johnson, has certainly been a pleasure and an esteemed honor of mine to even spend this small period of time with you, hearing of the great plans of the church and your exploits. Congratulations again on your re-election. We look forward to a great 5 years in this territory, and you certainly have represented the church well, and I want to commend you, and we continue to pray for you.
Thank you.
So this has been Voices, and we look to see you next time. My special guest, one more time, Dr. Leonard A. Johnson, newly re-elected president of the Atlantic Caribbean Union Mission. I am your host, Keith Major. Until next time.